A perennial issue with Brother knitting machines is those buttons across the front getting sticky and not responding properly. In this video, Jack will explain that to you.
All right, this is Ask Jack, all duly retired, freed up, and ready to work on machines. Because I have the time, here we are into an 893.
892.
892. And the reason we're in here is because a friend sent us a picture and saying, I took it apart, this part was left over, where did the part go? Sadly to say, the part did not come out of this carriage. But while we're in here, let's talk about a problem that everybody has had and is having and can have in the future. And it's these two center buttons right here that are supposed to work independently. And so often they do not. Let me show you why they so often do not. First of all, if you'll notice, the buttons here are now floating because they're not hooked to anything. We're going to show you the underside, which hopefully you yourself will never see. But if you'll notice, there's two slides for these buttons, but they lay directly on top of one another.
Can you shift them a little bit more so they show better?
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, now we can see two of them.
Yeah, you can see there's two different ones, but the minute I turn them loose and they go to where they should be, they lay right on top of one another. This shank section inside and even all the way out. But now look, right here, can you see that spot I'm indicating?
Mm-hmm.
That corresponds to these two tangs right here on the drives.
Okay, he's at the very top of the picture. I'm going to move the camera a little bit. There we go.
Okay, and if you'll notice, spring-loaded, that moves one, that moves both of them. But the independent nature is because this piece is taller and fits into the top button. This piece is short and wide and fits into the bottom button. This is something you're not going to see. Now, the next aspect we need to look at is this center post, which is where your adjustment dial goes on to, has a groove in it, and both of these fit into that same groove. So that there's no way...
Right there, is that correct?
Yes, that's it. There's a groove right there. And if you'll notice, these are slotted, just like this portion is slotted that we showed you. And I'll show you that again. But if you'll notice, I'm going to put my little dental tool in here, and I'm going to flex this for you. But these two plates are laying right on top of each other.
They actually rub each other.
And there's a set screw right there. Can you see that?
Yes, but because it's dark, I'm going to take this screwdriver.
Yeah, I'm going to put screwdriver in the set screw, but if you'll notice, that holds both of those plates right firmly close together. And what happens is, another reason for taking this one apart is to do some cleaning, but there's a little bit on my finger right there of the dried grease and old oil that will get between those two plates. There's a little bit of it right there.
And there's really not any room.
Yeah, there's no room. And if you'll notice, these little springs right here, and these two springs, this spring that I'm flexing, and that spring, that's the return for this mechanism. So if you think about it, these little guys have quite a job if there's any stiffness and corrosion in between these two plates. And if you'll notice, I'm outlining with my tool the top plate, and see how much larger that bottom plate is. So anything getting on the bottom plate, even to moisture, condensation, is going to try to work its way
in,
right underneath that top plate.
Well, what you're showing us explains something. A classic do-it-yourself fix is that people heat up the stuck buttons with a hairdryer, and it frees them, and they say, okay, I'm good to go. But I can see what happens the minute it cools back off to room temperature. The glue glues again. The goo glues again.
Exactly. Here, I'm going to move this over so we can see it, but look right here where my finger's tracing, and you can see I'm smearing around some hardened grease. Now, if you warmed it up, yeah, it would become liquid again, but as you say, the minute it cools down to room temperature, it's back to being grease again. That particular slide, you'll notice, is controlled by your KH knob, but all of this is what we get out in a deep soak.
And this is, of course, not a very dirty machine at all.
No, not at all. In fact, this one's been working fine. But since I'm retired and I have plenty of time now, we're going to slowly take Catherine's machines and completely refurbish them.
One or two of them need us to do it quickly.
Right. But mostly I wanted to show you how complex this mechanism is for these buttons. And if you'll notice, all of these move as the buttons move, but there's really not a lot of room in there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you go to push one of these buttons on the side, I think a tuck button, and the one next to it moves also. Well, look, we've got that same situation.
Right, they overlay one another.
They overlap. You can see them in the back, and this is where I'll tell you to squirt the croil when they hang up. And the problem is, see, the croil has to start here and work its way all the way up to here.
That's why it works, but it takes sometimes overnight or 2 days.
Yes, exactly.
And we should say here, we're not going to go into that on this video because you have a whole other video on fixing those stuck buttons. But we thought a little more explanation might be helpful.
And again, I'm just getting out some crud while I'm at it, and you can see it right there on the end of the dental tool.
Okay.
But yeah, to let you know that the tolerances inside of here are so close that...
This is true of every model of Brother in the last 40 years, I'm pretty sure.
Yes. All of them that have button, now whether the two center buttons are independent or they're one center button, it's still the same situation. Anything you get inside of here, there's no room for it. So you have to, and I got to get that to cancel, but you have to keep it as clean as you possibly can, and since this is all you ever see when you take the carriage off.
It can look nice and not
Yes,
be.
it can look all
And
nice and
also,
clean here.
Knitters who are more righteous than I vacuum out their machines frequently. However, the vacuum can't suck that out, can it?
No, it cannot. And of course, what you're really dealing with is the old lithium grease that was used when they built these machines. Back in the day, and believe me, I know I was there, that was the product. It was state of the art. But that hasn't been true in 50 years. It's no longer state of the art. We have so much better.
Actually, I remember you saying how great it was, and it hasn't been quite 50. Okay.
But that's why we have our list of chemicals, so that we let you know what's the best thing to use on your machine.